Greetings everyone, my name is Altarian and welcome back my friends to Ballads at Midnight. We left off here while the vampire ran away, so night seems never ending as I creep through the estate. The vampire hasn't shown himself since our earlier squabble, though his absence does little to assuage my nerves. As any prey animal knows, the deadliest predator is one you don't see coming. Exhausting waits against my eyes, but adrenaline keeps me on edge, pulsing through my veins like a heavy drum. The slightest shift of wind-blown curtains makes me jump. I keep expecting those moonlit eyes to be watching when I turn. But the shadows are always barren, devoid of vampires. Does it truly mean to sulk off the remaining of the night? I suppose I shouldn't count my blessings while I can. I should count my blessings. As I explore, I notice how each successive chamber is spotless and immaculately tidy. Aside from the furniture I disturbed, which I take the time to straighten, I uncovered an abundance of books crowding on shelves and various surfaces. They contain an array of technical topics, including geography, astronomy, invocation, and mathematics. They are all dog-eared and full of notes. Don't tell me he's read every book in the estate. I can't panic yet. I can still narrow this down. Assuming he takes the time to clean his most frequent space, I ought to pay attention to what is and isn't covered in dust. Yet even locating a single cobweb presents a unique challenge. I set a book down, running my hand across the marble exterior of an engraved fireplace. Even in this pristine, unmarred by old ashes and flickering flames, the nearby fire iron, at least, is an encouraging sight. I pick it up to give it a gentle swing, testing the weight, and wince when my arm drops to protest. I'll have to remind myself to use my non-dominant hand. The fire iron has a dull tip that isn't unlikely to pierce skin, but a decisive strike should send anyone reeling, even an immortal creature of the night. Of course, pissing him off by whacking him in the head is a last resort. I'm more interested in jabbing the fire iron into the ledge outside and using it as a handhold to climb my way up. The idea may sound absurd, but it could work. I won't know until I try. Although, even if I successfully scale the ledge, I'd still have to defeat the moat of somehow. My gaze wanders across the chamber. If someone is wealthy enough to build a castle, they usually enjoy surrounding themselves with larger-than-life portraits. One would think that I'd have found a big enough painting to pry off the wall and ride across the moat by now, but the decor is tragically modest. As I move my lower arms, a golden glint reflects off the dark metal of a fire iron. Huh? I pivot my shoulders with a cautious hope. There, thin rays of dawn light gleam through the drawn curtains. My body partially moves on its own. I march to the window and wrench the curtain open. Morning daylight fills the chamber. I'd never been happier to see the sun peeking over the mountains like an old friend. Though, the moment the curtains shift, a small being shape moves with it across the floor. A rat? I hate rats. I've always been scared of them. When I hop away from the shape, I observe how it doesn't continue to move. I bend to inspect it using the fire iron as for support. It's just a furled scrap of parchment, brown and frail with age. Yet, it's an unusual sight considering how free of dirt and clutter the rest of the room is. Would you look at that? He finally missed the spot. I suppose the vampire doesn't enjoy cleaning under the curtains, lest the sun sneak up on him unawares. I turn the page over, nothing to smudge of charcoal rubbing off my thumb. A part of a larger drawing? Maybe even one of those enormous portraits I'm sorely missing. I'm sure it's worthless, but no harm holding on to it. Perhaps the vampire will appreciate my help in tidying up. I try and fail to hold back the yawn that makes my entire body shudder. The bloom of sunlight fixing in the morning. Oh, the bloom of sunlight fixed in the sky, though refreshing to see, also serves as a reminder of how much time has passed, of how little sleep I've gotten. There won't be a better time to get some rest. I look about the chamber one final time. To be so surrounded by various furnishings is a mystifying sort of torture. Despite how all those nights of sleep on the ground have left me yearning for the comfort of a cushion, I know I can't sleep here. The vampire needs only to close the curtains to accost me in my sleep. Back outside I go. The days are long this time of year. I'll have plenty of time to try climbing the ledge when I wake. I grab a decorative pillow from the sofa. It's not much, but it will make my cobblestone bed a little more bearable. I retrace my steps through the estate and practically collapse on the first ring of sunlight I find. I awake from a darkless, restless slumber into the cold of the evening. Sitting up with a jolt, I scan the sky with a mounting dismay. Sundown again, already! How could I have slept for so long? The clenching ache of my bones and blossoming bruises on my skin reveal the answer to my unspoken question. My stamina is spent. I won't be able to run the way I did yesterday. No, damn it! It feels like the very shadows are reaching for me, streaking across the ground like a long claw. And speaking of claws, from the shade nearby, the vampire looks down at me with flat displeasure. My fingers curl instinctively around my fire iron. Why is the vampire not speaking? Read text? Yeah, he should have read that. I thought he would read that by now. You're still here on the ground, no less. No, a little bit more. You are still here on the ground, no less. Oh, where else should I go? Can you... No, back. Unread. Turn. Settings. Read text. Okay, I don't know why he doesn't read anymore, but yeah, I guess it's up to me. Why, I figured you would have climbed into the roof, run some metal calculus to determine the best angle of approach, and then leap into the moat to swim to freedom. A beat passes as I snare at him. Yes, that will be very practical, but anyone who tries it would be surely splattered against the rocky ledge below. Perhaps. And even if they made it to the water, they would discover the alligators in the moat. Alligators? Really? No. What the hell? I think I like you more when you were menacing me with that what crimes I'd committed. She dislikes the taste of her own medicine. Shocking. He folds his arm behind his back as he paces around me. I'm very aware that he can grab me and drag me into the shadow if he so desires, but he's choosing not to. You never did tell me what you did to get sent here. You're right, I didn't. We stare at each other now, sharing an ugly pause. But I apologize for my behavior last night, and for making a mess. Truly? He looks as though he's expecting a punchline. Yes, truly. I don't know what it's like to own an estate, but I'm sure it's dreadful having someone run around it. Indeed. Will you tell me what you're... Will you tell me what you're planning to do with my fire iron? What? This whole thing? I could lie to him, but I see little point in it. While I've developed a skill for enthralling an audience with tall tales, it's not as if I can trick them with believing my stories are real. Unless they're children, of course. And the pacing vampire hasn't seemed terribly childlike thus far. In any case, I'm not a good liar. When one is a good liar, honestly, is by far the better policy. If you leap at me, I would have tried to swing at you. But also, I thought I could use it as a handhold to get over the ledge. I cannot begrudge you for your caution against me. But using a fire iron as a handhold? Really? The ledge is made of solid stone. It's old, isn't it? Surely the stone was weathered down over the years. It most certainly has not. You will begrudge me for trying everything at my disposal? I might. If you ruin my fire iron in the progress. You need not try such inventive tactics if you agree to barter with me. Right, yes, about that. I'll have you know I'm extremely well traveled. How informed are about your recent history and new discoveries throughout the world? What makes you think I would be interested in such a thing? You mentioned you were open for trading knowledge. I remember it like it was just yesterday. Every 2 years, I receive a new guest at my estate. Each guest has some capacity to tell me news of the outside world. I have previously offered their freedom in exchange, but hearing news of the outside world loses its appeal when one is not welcome to participate in it. But some men and women have nothing else to give. Surely you would not deprive this opportunity for a future guest, when you have more to offer than this. My loot feels heavy against my back. What else can I offer that amounts the price of my freedom? Please, I can't give it to you. He scoffs at me. Just when I thought you were seeing sense. But I may yet be as amendable as you have been to me. Last night, I hadn't fully understood that you play music as your primary profession. Not at first. My recent slew of guests have been cutthroat and highwaymen. I forgot that I have also housed scientists and artists. I presume you must be good at your craft. As such, you need your loot more than I do. Suddenly an unexpected empathy leaves me speechless. He takes my silence as permission to continue. I ought to also admit, it has been a very long time since someone has told me no. It irritated me to hear, but it is within your right to say, of course. Forgive me for making it seem otherwise. As if our cordial conversation hasn't been astonishing enough, the vampire inclines his head towards me. You're forgiven? But wouldn't everyone have fought you to the bitter end? I mentioned there must have been several no's sprinkled in there. He chuckles wearily. When properly bound and restrained, one's capacity to fight to the bitter end is, quite limited. I expect this lends itself to making my guests more amenable to negotiation and to giving me anything I should desire. Oh, he really wasn't expecting me to break free of my bonds. Enough of this matter. I propose we approach this from a new angle. What do you want, mortal? If freedom has no strong appeal for you, perhaps you'd be more interested in power, in immortality. I don't miss the saturnine way he says the last word. No, I'm fairly sure I do want freedom, yes. I can't imagine what price I'd have to pay for the other two. My stomach growls. But I could do with some food.
Food?
Food. Even if I get out of here, the nearest village is miles away. I won't get far on an empty stomach.
You would ask a vampire to feed you. A marvelous modest start to our negotiated relationship. Your empty stomach shall be filled. I should have I should have surplus of blood lying around here somewhere. I'm joking. I'm not so old that I've forgotten that what mortals eat. Come with me.
He begins to lead the way. I struggle to my feet, but I have enough difficulty steadying myself that he pauses to turn and observe me. I end up using the fire iron to help me maintain my balance, like a metal walking stick.
You look pitiful.
I'm sure. My apologies for not being the picture of grace after a 9-day hike with slave-driving guardsmen. Now, where exactly do you plan on taking me? The vampire is kind enough to slow his pace and walk with me in a parallel tandem, though he stays in the shadows, and I in the waning light.
You're astoundingly paranoid. I'm taking you somewhere where I can feed you like agreed.
You mean to feed on me, don't you?
No.
He says it with such disgust that I gape at him, taken aback.
Oh, don't even begin to act offended. Have you looked at yourself? Filthy, dragged through prison cells and mud. Your taste most certainly will be foul.
I bite back the report about how I'm supposed to taste. More importantly, you're really not going to kill me and eat me? Ever?
Covered in muck as you are, I have no desire to even touch you. You doubt me?
I don't know. Sounds like you'll attack me the moment I'm clean. And I can't get a read on you. Maybe it's your fetish to lure your victims into a false sense of security.
How easily you remark on a stranger's fetishes. I had my suspicions you were a traveler, but I'm certain now you could not have been raised in Alluvia.
Yes. Beautiful Alluvia, kingdom of ungrateful prudes. They don't appreciate me here at all.
I'm quite certain they did not. You may have a seat and wait here, though I can't guarantee the chairs won't bite.
Very funny. He smirks a little at that, though he turns as if to hide it.
The kitchen is nearby, I won't be long.
I got a glimpse of his kitchen during my exploration last night. I noticed it was stocked with well-loved pans and utensils, but I never imagined that he meant he uses them with any frequency.
I expect you'll stay put, woefully wounded as you are. If you wander off and I can't find you, I'll have to deposit your meal into the moat.
Very well. I'll tame my advantageous spirit for the time being. I wouldn't want your imaginary alligators to be fed in my place.
You're catching on. Good girl.
True to this world, the vampire returns in the shortest order. He sets a tray loaded with roasted roots and grilled perch before me. A simple enough meal, but one of the most beautiful sights I've ever recently memory. It's not a plate of blood.
Is it not? Shall I switch it for you?
No, I'll be quiet. I reach for a fork and slice into the fish, excited to savor my first meal in days. I take the first bite and... it's awful! Some of the prison slops tasted better than this burnt over salted tragedy. Even stranger, I taste hints of cinnamon, garlic and a coffee? At this point I have no idea what I'm eating, but I'm too hungry to stop.
I must have outdone myself. Don't forget to breathe. Mortals need air in their lungs, I hear. It is delicious, isn't it?
My fork poses against my lips.
God, it's really not, be honest. Best meal I've ever had, life through my teeth. You know, I like her personality of being that rude, sarcastic one, so let's go with the first one. God, it's really not.
This one is one of my worst cooked fish I've ever had in my life, but it tastes better than starvation. The vampire regards me with an unreadable expression. His next words are as slow as they're measured.
I've served more than 100 guests in my lifetime. Not a single one of them has described it as, I quote, better than starvation.
Without constructive criticisms, how will you improve? Sure you will not begrudge me for being honest? The vampire watches me finish my next bite, eyes narrowed.
No matter. I care not what you think of my cooking.
Yes, his lower lip is unmistakable jutted to a small pout, but I don't get to see it for long.
Now that I have given you a meal, you will give me something I want in return.
Why do you keep insisting on this insane little trait?
He shrugs his shoulder with a touch of this
derision. Don't know what it is.
It is my nature. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. No service without costs.
Fine, vampire. Can I interest you in a song?
He arches his brows
And says nothing, but I can tell I've piqued his interest. I've seen your books, all technically, no whimsy. It must have been some time since you last heard a compelling story. I shift my lute into my arms, strumming it once for intrigue. Brr. A tempting little preview.
Very well, Bart. A song in exchange for the meal.
I lower my gaze to my lute, heaving a sigh I didn't know I was holding. Good. I just have to play a little song. It's a simple request, one I've fulfilled thousands of times, over in several dozen taverns. But the thrill of anticipation is making my fingers jitter. Just yesterday I was grimmingly certain that I would never perform again. Now I'm performing for the vampire who was supposed to tear me to shreds. I trace a fingernail over a single string. Then I pluck at each string sequentially, testing and tuning in turn. And then I begin to play. The vampire who, until now, had a perpetual proclivity for pacing, slows and pauses mid-step and watch me, with his hand folded on a writing table. My voice turns into the best weapon I've ever wielded, stronger and sharper than any knife or fire iron. Notes tickle from my lungs, rush through my throat, and pour from my lips into a song that floods the room within the tale most forlorn. The ballad I've chosen starts melancholic. It follows a young man as life takes from him. His father is his first to be taken, life cut short by a plague. His betrothed the next, abandoning him for a wealthier man. When he's brutally mugged and left for dead, he feels as though his last remnants of peace have been torn to shreds. He finds himself alone, left behind, forgotten. His mind is swallowed whole by rage and grief and self-loathing, until one day he decides his turn to take. He takes a torch to the stable of his former betrothed. He takes a noble woman's heart with false oaths and pretty words. He takes the world by storm, molding it like wet sand to fulfill his every desire. When I finish the song, I offer the vampire a small bow. Though my entire performance, his gaze clung into my through my entire performance, his gaze clung to me like a thorn, never once wavering from my body.
What a wretched protagonist.
You don't like it? It's one of my most requested tavern songs.
Ah, how baffling to hear that human men find inspiration in an egocentric finale.
There's a version of the song with a female protagonist. It's not always requested by men.
Another unexpected renovation. Although I find the song message disagreeable, I will concede that you sung it well.
Oh, I thank you. Which lapse into a brief silence, not quite looking at each other, to my surprise. He's the one who speaks next.
This estate. I often forget what it is like to have more than the sound of my own thoughts, and of cicadas crying out the night. With nothing to interrupt the passage of the immortality, silence can be maddening. How much do you earn at these taverns of yours? How many songs did it take you for you to afford an instrument of that quality?
How many songs? I've never thought of it that way. It doesn't really work like that. I looked down at my lute, running my fingers over its surface. It was given to me, which means I never actually had to pay for it. But I don't need to share that with him. Sometimes I compose original songs on commission, which is more time consuming, but affords me more gold. As for crowd work, a classic in a well-stocked bar, on a good night, would net me several dozen coppers and a handful of gold. I suppose it amounts to 100 songs or so, if I combined the two. Of course, saving up for an artist instrument would take even longer.
Yes. 100 songs, you say? 100 songs over 100 nights, and I will ensure you have food, hygiene, and eventually safe passage from the estate.
Hygiene? But if I'm clean, you'll want to suck my blood.
Then you can be clean in the day and dirty yourself up in the night if it pleases you. Do what you will.
His words hang in the air between us like a haze. Despite the numerous opportunities he had to hurt me, he hasn't laid a hand on me all night. If my safety really is guaranteed, it's a tempting deal to take. Besides, it's not like I have many other options. Just some songs and you'll let me go? You won't try to steal my loot while I sleep?
You take me for a common thief? How dare you? Such an appealing accusation when I can clearly see I still have all my fingers.
The vampire raises his hand for me to see. The familiarity of the gesture is uncanny. It seems to me that a powerful vampire like you can recover from various wounds in an instant. You could have been amputated at the elbow for all I know. And speaking of vampires, I seem to recall a legend that's suggesting your kind can't cross running water. Which means you can't leave the estate either, can you? I'm curious to know what crime you committed to be sent here.
Enough. I'm awaiting your song tomorrow.
He stands up and leaves. Good night, sweet prince.
Don't let the bedbugs bite. I hope you see me in your nightmares. Let's go with the first one.
Good night, sweet prince. Don't let the bedbugs bite.
You realize I'm not going to sleep, do you? I just no longer wish to be in your company.
Then I hope the bedbugs do bite you.
Keep speaking that way, and there may be more biting than you're bargaining for, mortal.
I clamp my mouth shut. He strides to the nearest window. And flickers away. Like before, he erupts in mist and takes off in the night in the shape of a bat. But this time, he's left me with a half-finished plate of unsauced fish. Chapter 4, Harmonic Conversations. This chapter took quite long. I guess we'll pause at this one here. Let's make another save. There we go. I do wonder why there was no voice acting this time. Maybe it's not everywhere. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. This was the second episode. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. And I will see you in the next part of the story. Have a good day, everyone.